Thank you, Sergio. Good morning, good afternoon, and good night. It's a pleasure to join the annual Global Legal Tech Hub Day to share with you some perspectives of the challenges and the amazing opportunities in legal tech throughout Latin America. My name is Juan Carlos Luna. I'm a partner at Logistic and co-founder of Lawit Group, a legal innovation and technology consulting firm. I collaborate with Global Legal Tech Hub as co-lead of the Spanish space, where we help identify, share, and communicate leading activities, investments, events, and startups that are having a relevant impact in the legal sector. Today, I have the pleasure to moderate a panel with recognized experts on legal tech and overall legal innovation in Latin America. Very briefly, I will introduce our panelists. I will not go over their resumes to focus our time and their valuable insights, but please connect with each of them through LinkedIn. You will find out relevant information of their activities, their leadership, and their experiences. Eileen Matus, Professor of Law, Director of the LL.M program, and Director of the Legaltech Lab at the School of Government and Public Transformation at the Tecnológico de Monterrey. She's joining us from Mexico City. Andrés Jara, founder and CEO at Alter Law and co-founder of Kia Technology, a legal tech startup. Andrés is joining us from Chile. And Fernando Peláez-Pier, CEO of LexLatin, an expert on legal topics throughout Latin America and international scope. And he's joining us from Miami. So thank you all for being part of this panel. Fernando, I would like to begin with you. You have a deep knowledge and grasp of the legal industry in Latin America. Through your work, analysis, research, and interviews, you know the motivations, the opportunities, and the challenges that law firms face. How would you characterize the overall response, the type of engagement, and the investment of law firms in legal tech?
Thank you, Juan. I think it's a very important question, taking into account the importance of law tech in the legal sector. I think that investment and the engagement is improving, but there is still a long way to go. I think that it is necessary to define a long-term strategy versus a short-term, which has been one of the problems among the legal sector. Investment in law tech has to be regarded as such, as an investment and not as an expense. Based on information that I have, I think that around 60% of law firms have expressed that they are working on a strategy to proceed with their digital transformation and to incorporate legal tech into their business. But the truth is that it is only around 30%, 35% of the firms that they are already in the process of executing their strategy and investing in technology. Technology, in my opinion, is the silent partner, and firms must understand that they have to invest in the development of such partner and to have a clear understanding in which areas and services within their firm such partner should focus in order to develop and to improve them. The legal sector, and this is well known to all of us, is under pressure. We hear and read about all the factors impacting the legal sector and the need to review the traditional business model. We have heard and read quite a lot about the need that lawyers have to change their mindset, that they have to focus on clients and talent. We have read quite a lot about, and we are clear on the empowerment of the client, and there are many other factors impacting the sector of legal services. But the truth is, in my opinion, that the most important factor impacting the legal business is competition. Competition has grown dramatically in every single region of the world, and Latin America is not the exception. And it is there where law tech can make the difference. In my opinion, firms investing on and developing the silent partner can be much more competitive. I think that could be my answer to your question, Juan.
Thank you, Fernando. You touch on a very interesting concept, which is the silent partner, and I believe that you're developing an event on that concept, which is, I think, not only new but certainly a true analysis of what's going on in terms of the impact and the way that it should be embraced by law firms. Thank you, Fernando. Let me turn it to Eileen. A key challenge to identify the opportunities and to be able to truly assess the possibilities and benefits of legal tech implementation is data. Your academic activities, views, and insights allow you to have a strategic view on data. The question is, what can you tell us in this regard? From a general perspective, is the Latin American legal sector aware of relevant data and is committed to embrace the use of legal technology?
Thanks for the question, Juan. Thanks, everyone. And I'm very happy to be sharing this space with you. I will start by saying that the legal practitioners and lawyers have always used data. What I consider has changed is the amount of data, the emergence of data-driven systems, legal technology tools, combined with the rapid pace of digital transformation, obviously accelerated by the pandemic. And as you said it, my professional and academic perspective has allowed me to have a broader vision regarding data applied to legal institutions and situations. At the Legal Tech Lab, we get to observe how law firms, in-house lawyers, students, professors, startups, and other universities, and also public institutions react to applying technology and data for legal services. We have been present to see how data-driven mind has evolved, whether in a firm or in a corporate legal environment or other legal scenario. Lawyers traditionally measure their value by the time spent on legal work. And this is quick and easy, but I think it doesn't capture the true value of legal services. In that sense, it is not only about having knowledge of technological concepts, but also about creating a data oriented thinking, which allows contextualizing legal problems into a technological environment in order to apply, but also to evaluate the use of technological tools as a solution. Um, and this is, without a doubt, one of the competencies and skills that that I think that a person dedicated to legal technology must develop. In a digital economy, the value of legal work largely results from a core human expertise multiplied by the ability to efficiently package legal know-how into technology. Um, the industrialization of the legal profession is precisely based on the creation of automatic processes, on the use of that data to generate patterns, and on the ability to be predictive. This is why legal tech represents a deep change in the digital transformation that impacts directly on the traditional model of provision of legal services. However, the use of data science in legal technology is not only about finding patterns and correlations and predictions. It's also about as an emerging industry, it is also about funding in an structured way. So before applying data science, sometimes we will find that this information is not cleaned. So we get to be aggregated and sorted. So we will be before a complexity to the data-oriented thinking. So professional legal technologies become important to the implementation of legal tech. I think to close, we are increasingly aware of the importance of data-driven mindset and to the fact that if the practice of law changes, then means parts of legal education must change too. As the director of the Masters in Law of the School of Government and Public Transformation, I can tell you that our academic program already includes various courses such as legal analytics, legal operations, data privacy, cybersecurity, a boot camp on computer programming and data science. We believe on educating our students for a future practice And this could be translated into educating lawyers, legal practitioners, public servants, and taking any other professional into the next level. So I don't know if this answers your question.
Thank you. And let me ask a very quick follow-up questions. Talking about data in Latin America for the analysis of trends of what's going on and how it would affect the overall disruption of the legal sector in Latin America. Where is Latin America getting that data from? Is it more from Europe or more from the US, or how do you see that flow of key relevant data? Just on a short answer.
It is a complicated question because I think it comes from various latitudes. I guess it's not only how the regulation of these technologies has been impacting in Europe, the States, because we have like three huge economies, markets that are interesting how they have been developed this technology. First, we have a more open market, which is the US, and then we have a more conservative market, which is Europe, and then we have a more authoritarian, but yet very innovative market, which is Asia. I think in Mexico, the closeness to the US give us a little, and the language and the geographical closeness to the US give us a certain closeness to how apply legal tech in Latin America, and not only Mexico, but also, for example, regulation in privacy and cybersecurity, I think has been having a lot of impact in how our public institutions have been reacting to how privacy is regulated and how data should be used as a material to create more information and to be a fact of study in creating more efficient processes with in combination with artificial technology. I think it has been influenced mostly by US, but also Europe, the regulation. Also, we're very close to the US, as I said, and there are all these startups that have been generating and that have all these alliances with other American startups. So I think we have access. We have been having access to many US startups. I'm very glad to know that now we're getting closer with Spain and Italy. We're also getting closer in the from the academic sector. We have been sharing a lot of knowledge about this technology and how it has been regulated in Europe, especially in Spain. We have our alliances with other universities. So I would say in a general, like US, directly US and Europe, and in a third place, I would say Asia, the impact of regulation in Mexico.
Perfect. Thank you so much. Now I'll turn it to you, Andres. And you have a unique perspective, both as a disruptive lawyer with an alternative legal service firm, but also as a CEO of a legal tech startup, which is a unique combination of something that we have been seeing happening for the past couple of years in the overall legal scenario. Can you share with us your experience as a legal tech entrepreneur? Describe the opportunity you saw to make this change or to make this additional activity, and what the most relevant challenges you have faced during this new adventure.
Thanks again for inviting me to this event, and happy to share experiences and certainly a stage with such great people too. So having said that, to your question, I would say that certainly it's part of a journey And I wouldn't say that it's the consequence of being like identifying too many pains to be addressed, but rather it's a natural evolution to come from consulting services or legal services and then move into technology. And the reason of that is basically that when you are able to hear the kind of pains usually lawyers face or are exposed to in their day-to-day work, it's much easier to understand where you could probably help, and where you could probably try at least to develop some solutions or some tools that lawyers might like in their day-to-day work. So having said that too, and in a nutshell, I would say that the founding basically a legal tech company. It's a consequence of a lot of observations in my previous work, being a lawyer, exercising as a practicing traditional lawyer in law firms, and then moving into legal departments. I had the opportunity to be a general counsel, and as a consequence, also to be exposed to two sides of the market, like the offering and the demand, right? And there is a kind of gap among both. There is a kind of disconnection between the offer and the demand. And I would say that that gap is a kind of places where opportunities arise and where you can certainly find some solutions. Now, in my experience, at least until this point of the time, um, it's a mix of feelings. I would say I always say it's a kind of a roller coaster of emotions. You are up and down every day because you talk with potential clients. Today, I'm really focused on legal tech and really focused on my technology company, and and you talk with clients and you understand that the pains are still the same, even considering that many changes in their environment did happen in the past, and mainly through pandemic, which changed the landscape of how lawyers traditionally were meant to work in a certain way. So and why? Because usually you didn't think that a lawyer could work remotely. Lawyers were keen to use collaboration tools due to basically, um, I would say, a concern regarding the use of cloud tools and making information and data flow from one side to the other without any kind of control or security, that those confidential matters might be in risk. Um, and with all those like restrictions, lawyers were really keen to interact with technology. And I was just a couple of weeks ago in London at the Legal Geek conference. And a couple of weeks before that, I was in Washington, D.C. at the International Legal Tech Association conference. And I would say that probably 60 to 70% of the content, I mean the educational content and sessions, were um, um, regarding topics related to change management, and related to how can we make lawyers adopt technology and change their mindset and be comfortable with the possibility to use technology. So having said that, you can understand that we are still in an environment that it's struggling with the idea of introducing more and more technology, and that makes it much more difficult when you have the environment or that Fernando or Eileen previously described, right? That data is dispersed. You have many data sources that are not really connected. Then you have a really competitive environment where you are pushed to move fast, but without a proper strategy, you may lose a lot of money. So at the end, I would say that the current status of legal tech, and mainly in the region, mainly in Latin America, um, it's um, it's like lost in a way, in a certain way. There are not really like there is not a clear path to follow on which kind of tools will help, which kind of tools really have cases or use cases that can be shown with real impact on profitability, on service or client NPS, or like net promoter scores and things like that. So it's a mix of feelings, I would say. However, there is hope, and that hope is based on the fact that many new entrepreneurs and also even incumbents that are professionals that don't have the kind of background I have are really interested in the blue ocean that legal services and the legal industry represents. And therefore, you see uh, on the launch of new startups, and probably today the most difficult thing in legal tech in the region is founding, right? And we probably will talk about that afterwards. So yeah, that's my view in general terms.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Andres. I'll go back to you, Fernando, and you mentioned something about the competitive market that we're living on, and what the challenges faced by law firms. The question would be, why is productivity improvement as a concept so important to the legal industry right now, and how are lawyers or leading attorneys coping with this demand?
Well, as you mentioned in your question, in the first response that I gave to you, I did a remark on the role that competition has nowadays in the legal sector, and the competition puts a lot of pressure on law firms and on lawyers in general, because we are not talking anymore of the traditional local competition. We're talking about local competition, regional competition, international competition, and most importantly, we are talking as well about the competition generated by alternate service providers that nowadays they have, I would say, disrupted the legal market, and they are gaining every single day a major space, without mentioning the role that the big four are playing as well in the legal market sector. And if we read the recent news about the decisions taken by EY and how they will transform their legal service, I think that this is something that the legal market has to understand, that in order to continue providing the services that they have been providing to their client, but most importantly, in order to keep their book of business, that is to say, the portfolio of clients, they have to be efficient and they have to be productive. And one thing, in my opinion, takes you to the others. And once again, here, law tech, legal technology plays a very important role. And all of us, we are aware that more and more the clients, the heads of the legal departments inquire about how their outside counsels are doing in the use of new technologies, how they are using law tech in order to be more efficient and more productive, because that has an impact on the services provided by the law firms to their clients. In the conversation that you had with Elaine, you brought one subject that, in my opinion, is extremely important, which is the data analysis. And I think that there is no doubt that one of the industries that generates more data is the legal industry. And at the same time, I think that is one of the industries that basically do not use the data produced by them in order to work on the information that data provides to them in order to work and define their different strategies. And very often, and I think this is still the case, a large number of law firms embark themselves on strategies without analyzing their internal data. So the fact that nowadays we have different tools, and there are programs in order to teach the legal sector the importance that data has in order to run the business, I think it is of paramount importance. And I think, Juan, that that's, in my opinion, the answer to your question. Competition is putting a big burden on the shoulders of the law firms in order to be competitive. And in order to be competitive, they have to be efficient, and they have to be efficient in order to be productive. There are other remarks that I would like to make on this regard, but there are possibility to do this in the next coming questions that you have. Thank you.
Perfect. Thank you, Fernando. Eileen, switching to it's not a completely different topic, but I think it complements what Fernando was saying from another angle. On your perspective, based on the regulatory environment and administrative role of the legal sector, what role does the government and court systems play in encouraging tech adoption from your experience and from what you see happening throughout certainly Mexico, but also happening in Latin America?
It's interesting the distinction you make between government and courts. I am guessing that government, by the government, you refer to the functions of the executive, understood such as the provision of public services in all areas, and by the courts, you refer, I guess you refer to the progress made by the judicial branch to guarantee access to justice. I will say that the automation process of the Mexican government was different, and before and after the pandemic, since it had to respond to the needs of society. The courts had to adopt various processes to mitigate the ravages caused by COVID-19, which were mostly caused by the limitation of different activities that were previously considered as an immovable fact, included the administration of justice. So in that sense, digital justice became very relevant as the first alternative that was open to begin or to initiate, for example, an amparo trial parallel to the urgent matters that were already addressed at the so-called online trials. However, the lack of knowledge on the part of the people regarding this route or this channel, the digital divide, and some deficiencies in relation to the online services portal made its impact to be much less than expected. I think there's I always bring numbers. There's a report made by the Federal Judiciary Council that between March 2019 and February 2020, that is before the pandemic affected our country, only 1.50% of the lawsuits were filed through the service portal. And then between March 2020 and February 2021, the claims filed through the online represented 0.5% of all the promotions filed through this channel. No, so we can see that there was an increase in the use of the online portal, but this increase is not very relevant. No, so also last week the Federal Judiciary Council stated in a general agreement that the files will now be digital. So what this means is that the physical files will serve as a reference for the documents received physically, on the understanding that the electronic files will be the only ones that have the validity for consultation of the parties, as well as the purpose of statistical processes, visits, surveillance, and other procedures before the judiciary. So in that sense, we can say that the judiciary has increased the use of technology to resolve conflicts. However, that doesn't mean that it is digitalized. An effort was made to provide during the pandemic access to justice, but I think that is not all. There's still much to do on the judiciary branch. Going back to the government, regarding the government, with the arrival also with COVID-19, thousands of doors of public offices to which citizens went daily to carry out procedures and obtain public services were closed, meaning that governments, the federal government and the government of the different states, were forced to offer digital services from one day to another, and citizens were also forced to use a different channel to the ones they were familiar with in order to access the services they needed. Many services, when I think of the government, many services come into my mind, most of them administrative, but I want to center on two relevant sectors that I think they represent a public service, but also a right, that there was a need to digitalize this sector to provide this access to most of the population, and it was a challenge in Mexico, and that is education and health. In the health sector, we have seen that the use of cutting edge technologies such as artificial intelligence not only help to save lives, diagnose illnesses, or extend life expectancy, which is relevant, but it also gives you most of the people access to a doctor. No? Also, the field of education, virtual learning environment, distance learnings have brought educational programs to students who would otherwise be excluded. However, these services given by the government in Mexico, we had some problems, not only in the implementations of these services, but also regarding digital divides, digital analphabetism, and that the government did not have the infrastructure to carry out this rapid development. In that sense, I think the Mexican government have the challenge to increase tech adoption, because it's not only the infrastructure of the government. You can have a very good infrastructure at the government, but if the people cannot connect, then there is a problem. So there's the challenge to increase tech adoption, reduce digital divide in a way to include most of the population into this digital transformation.
Thank you, Eileen. Thank you very much. Andres, during and after the pandemic, we saw an increase, as Eileen was mentioning, an increased interest in legal tech. But one of the issues that has been divided and also very active in all the scenarios, events, articles written. It's about innovation. So, what about innovation in the core business model of the legal industry, which is something that is critically important? And the question is, what's the status of that? Is it keeping up with technology implementation? Can you comment and give your thoughts on that?
Yeah, sure. I will share my view on that respect, and I will approach to that question from a probably really personal experience. And 8 years ago, when I started with Ulster Legal, which is basically innovating in the business model of the delivery of legal services, based on models that were, I would say, built or thought in other jurisdictions like the US or UK, but where opportunities were not really approached or used in Latin America in the same way. We decided to build a different business model, and we started basically with Ulster with three main, I would say, like strategic pillars. The first one was to have a lack of investment in infrastructure, but rather use technology. Talent pool, because we understood that certainly legal services is based mainly on knowledge, and knowledge comes from experiences, and experiences are by people. And secondly, and so I'm sorry, and the third pillar was basically building products. So not just delivering services as just a legal opinion or a legal support, but rather product generating products and packages of products and innovating in pricing and things like that. Okay, so that was almost 8 years ago. For a while, I would say until COVID, the changes and the acceptance in a certain way of this kind of value propositions in the market were reduced. I mean, there were not many like clients that were exploring or were really wanting to change the way how they got services from traditional law firms. Therefore, the market was restricted. There were a lot of barriers, and it was quite messy to open a new account and to get a new client. However, after pandemic and after the conditions in the market changed, people and mainly clients understood that the value of traditional services or legal services wasn't really based on the fact that we have basically a great infrastructure, beautiful offices, and a traditional like value proposition approach, but rather there was a space and willingness increased on having different value propositions, because also markets in general terms were restricted, and the companies and the people who was trying to buy legal services did have a lot of restrictions from cash flow too. So at the end they said, okay, if I'm facing a crisis, if I'm facing today probably a recession, I'm obliged to find other ways to cover the kind of needs I have. And that was exactly the same kind of conditions that in 2008, after subprime, changed the legal market in the US and in the UK. And that was the tipping point where the big players like Axiom, Lawyers on Demand, Cognia, United Lex, and many others really change their revenue and really start building solid and constantly growing corporations that ended up in M&As, IPOs, and things like that. So my perception is that, and this is totally linked with innovation, is that the pandemic changed the market conditions, but mainly the economic environment. And a much more restricted economic environment, plus the increasing, I would say, developing or new value propositions and differentiation strategies among legal service providers generate a tipping point in Latin America today that probably will impact in the next 5 years how the market is structured, how the offering of legal services is segmented, and which kind of players are going to be winners after this specific condition. And that's innovation. Innovation is usually pushed by outside conditions. And those outside conditions, I believe, that are today much more clear than 8 years ago. So there is a natural evolution on innovation, and innovation needs to be understood as a global trend, I would say, that impacts or pushes people and providers, service providers, to change their mind, to open their minds, and to start improving, for example, productivity, as you were talking before with Fernando, introducing Legaltech, changing the way how we relate with public entities and things like that. So as Eileen also said before. So I believe that today we are facing a quite particular timing to see changes happen and to see in innovation the way and methodology to bring those really changes to practice and reality.
Thank you, Andres. That's really, if I would just add, it's disruptive innovation, what it's happening, and a key of the description and timing that you mentioned. Let me change gears a little bit on this section. We're reaching kind of the last section of the panel. We have two exercises left. Let me change to this one. This is really quick fire questions. We'll follow the same order as Fernando will leave his comment, then Eileen, then you, Andres. And it's just really just whatever comes to mind in a very simple, almost a yes or no question on these 5 key elements that we included, because we want to give a fresh look and perspective of what is happening in Latin America. So please go and answer just as quickly as you can, and we'll follow that order. Quick question: who is driving legal innovation, law firms or in-house legal departments? Fernando.
Well, in my opinion, I think that in-house legal departments, and the reason is multinationals have a very strong presence in our region, and multinationals have been investing quite a lot on technology. So their subsidiaries in the region benefit from the investment and the development on legal tech on the headquarters, wherever they are based, in the United States, in Europe, or in Asia. And the same happens with the international law firms that have a presence in Latin America. International law firms have been investing much more in the development of legal technology, and therefore the local firms in the region, whether they are branches or different sort of, let's say, agreements with local firms, have the big benefit of have access to all these developments.
Perfect. Eileen.
I would say law firms, because they require to assess their actions and to perform efficiently too many law processes, but they put pressure on in-house legal departments to innovate. And also because in my experience, I've seen that many of these law firms, they provide the legal services to many companies and to these in-house legal departments. So at the end, there are these big law firms, the ones that they are taking all these legal processes, helping, hand by hand with the in-house lawyers.
Perfect. Thank you. And Andres.
Well, it's difficult. I would need to go for one of the two sides, right? And would like to be in the middle. But my impression is that legal departments really push the market, and the reason of that it's based basically on the kind of incentives they have to change. Basically, legal departments are struggling with doing more with less. That's a rule, and that's a rule since the beginning of legal departments' time, like 20 years ago. So I've been exposed to legal departments since a while, providing legal operation services and legal operation consulting services. And sorry, I ran out. One of the things that I see every day is that legal departments are pushed to reduce budgets and pushed to find other ways to solve basically the same kind of problems, and actually an increasing demand on legal needs. Therefore, the incentives are there them to look into different ways to solve those kind of needs, and law firms don't really need to change a lot unless they're getting less revenue, right? And that's not a fact, actually. If you see the data, revenues in law firms in the last years increased. So yeah, I believe the legal departments.
Thank you. Now, this one is an easy one because you only have to give a number. And this is like, from 1 to 10, obviously 1 being the lowest and 10 being the highest. How mature in Latin America? I know that is a very general question, but it's important just to have your feeling. How mature is the legal department, is the legal tech industry in Latin America from 1 to 10? Fernando.
Okay, I think my answer would be we are, as I said at the beginning, there's a long way to go still, and therefore that put us around 5, I would say.
Okay. Eileen?
I would say 4, since Legaltech still been adopted and we're still like in that transition.
All right. And Andres?
I'm really critic. 2, and with luck.
There you go. Well, you get a good match of numbers. So, do your math and see, look it from the angle of opportunities and the certainly the challenges ahead, but also the opportunities. Another quick fire question. What are the 2 biggest obstacles that you see for legal tech implementation? And we'll follow the same order: Fernando, Eileen, and Andres. And with those comments, we'll probably take it to a last question to be able to end of time. So what are the 2 biggest obstacles, Fernando, for legal tech implementation?
They need to change the mindset, number 1, without any doubt. And second, lawyers and law firms have to move out from their comfort zone. They have been doing business for ages, and the pandemic was expected to have a very negative impact on the results of law firms, and we saw that the pandemic during the pandemic year, financially, it was a great year for all firms all around the world, and that raised the question: why do we have to change?
Perfect. Thank you. Eileen?
Quick and easy: budget and vision.
There you go. And Andres?
3 in 1: people, and people. I mean, yeah, this is a matter of change management.
Very good angles, and I think it complements what you've been commenting to also. Great advice. Now, on a few minutes, maybe 2 or 3 minutes to close on this, close the session with your thoughts on this. What additional comment, advice, or analysis would you like to share so that this panel really gives a proper perspective of legal tech in Latin America and its relevance and opportunities? So, what would be, in, let's say, to wrap it up in 2 minutes, Fernando, your advice or analysis?
I think taking the answer given by Elaine, law firms have to regard their business on a long-term basis, to finish with the short-term basis, to work on budgets on the long term, and to avoid to see all the investments that they have to undertake for digital transformation and many other investments that they require as an expense. And looking at the end of the fiscal year, they have to regard this on a long-term basis in order to accomplish all the changes that they have to introduce to their business and bring different proposals to their clients.
Thank you, Fernando. I'll take it, turn it to Eileen.
Sorry. I think we're still redefining how technology should be adopted by the legal sector. And that includes education. In that sense, we will not get there if we still keep our education programs in a traditional legal schema. And also, I think part of changing and adopting this digital mindset, as Fernando said it, is keep educating, like the continuous continuing education on this, because the digital economy is very fast. Everything changes very fast. So what probably you learned a year ago is no use, that has no use anymore. So I think education is very important, to keep educating yourself and being trading law firms, in-house lawyers, and also traditional students that they, that would be my, to keep education going.
Thank you, Eileen. And Andres, your thoughts?
Thanks. Yeah, I agree. I totally agree with both, actually, comments before. But from my own perspective, basically what I see in Latin America, it's still a kind of lack of interest in moving forward. And that means from two perspectives. First, law firms don't really investing or funding potential innovators, I would say, in general terms, like that means legal tech or new business models. As a difference to much more developed markets like the UK or the US, that probably are the much more developed markets in the world, where you see a lot of law firms pushing things forward and exploring and really trying to find new ways to improve their offering, their value proposition, and things like that. You don't really see too much interest from law firms in Latin America, like trying to work on that seriously, like investing serious money on that. And it's not a matter of budget. It's not a matter of that they don't have the money. It's a matter of which is the priority those kind of investments have within their strategies, within their visions, as also Eileen said before, budgets and visions, right? So that's the first takeaway. And the second one is regarding legal tech itself. I mean, I believe that today we can see two kind of solutions. The ones that are meant for lawyers. So let's build tools and solutions that really help lawyers to do their work better, to make them more productive, or even to impact their life and balance matter, which is a topic that we didn't address today, but it's quite relevant too. And on the other hand, we have some solutions that are meant for final customers. So to solve the problem of one individual who needs, I don't know, a will, or who needs to I don't know, solve a fine, or something like that. And I would say that there are not many like solutions successfully working with lawyers, and there are some early experiments on what can I do for final clients. So I believe that there is still a great space to improve solutions, and to work on developing that. But we need the help from the market. We need the help from legal departments as potential clients and potential users, and pushing law firms to and asking law firms to bring new things to the table. And we need law firms working on that, like really thinking and pushing things forward, that, as I said before. So I believe that's the state of the art, and those are the invitations I would like to give to the market. So basically we work on those.
Thank you. So we've reached the end of this session. I would like to thank again Fernando, Eileen, and Andres for joining us in this very interesting conversation. Please reach out to them through LinkedIn. I think you'll find a lot of interesting content, ideas, and the concept of sharing knowledge is what this event is all about. As you have heard, there are challenges and opportunities, but the key message remains the same and is consistent to what other regions are experiencing. Disruption of the legal industry is a reality. The digital economy requires lawyers to be well versed on the use of digital tools to be able to respond to clients' demands. When we talk about legal tech, we're talking about a requirement to remain relevant and competitive. And access to justice needs to improve, and innovation and legal tech must facilitate such demand. And a final thought, lawyers must be excellent salespeople of their services, but they also need to be excellent buyers and users of legal tech tools. Thanks for joining us, and enjoy the rest of the program. Sergio, thank you for the opportunity, and we turn it back to you. Thank you.